So, Neil, the professional.
Terrifying.
Yeah. Where and what did you study?
So I started at UCT doing theatre making, and sort of halfway through my time there, conversation was had with me with two of my lecturers and with the then head of UCT drama department, Gay Morris, wonderful woman. We'll never forget that woman's laugh. It was just the best thing in the whole world. They had a conversation with me about my love for the design and the design, by the way, not just design. And they managed to get me a transfer to AFTA to do production design at AFTA. And then through my time there, I managed to get an apprenticeship with Keith Anderson, who, may he rest in peace, one of South Africa's founding fathers, really, of design for theatre. A remarkable, remarkable man who I spent a while with and who taught me so much in my career. And that was sort of my journey in studying, which was a bit sort of left field and not really ever one lovely piece of paper with a stamp on it. But, that was me.
It's not the paper that's important.
Tell my mother that, but okay.
And what was your first job in the industry?
My first job, we've had this conversation.
Your first job as a designer in the industry. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Multifaceted,
very quick.
creative. I must specify.
My first job as a designer, what was my first project? I think the first one, I speak under correction because I'm old and I can't remember things anymore. But I think my first job my first show that I designed was one of two things. It was either a spoof that Fred Abrahams directed and Charlie Hunlingen folded the music for, called Bungbrook Mountain, which is the old on Broadway that Russell Shapiro used to own. It was either that or it was Tuesdays with Maury that was done in Johannesburg. I can't remember which one of the two came first.
I'd love to have so much work that I can't remember the order of events. So that's...
It's just because I'm old.
Okay. Okay, this question I think is super important for my generation to hear, and I love to hear about these kinds of things. So aside from your technical and creative skill, what ingredients have you found in yourself that has made you as successful as you are?
I think, successful in design, I mean, that's still trying to wrap my head around whether or not that's a reality in my life. But I think I've always been fascinated by so many things, and it used to drove my mother insane when I was growing up. It drove my brother, pulled his hair out with me for a while because there was always something else. I was always forever doing a makeup course or a photographic course or a let's go and learn how to mold clay. I was always doing these weird things, and my family drove them mental. They were like, "Can you just focus on one thing for once?" And I always wondered why that happened in my life, because, if we're going to get very sure, everything happens in our lives for a reason. And I sort of have sat back now and gone, all these things, including having been a performer, have made me the designer I am today, because I don't focus on purely a pattern cut and a piece of fabric. It's how does the performer interact with this? How is this going to look under lighting? How is this going to look with this makeup? How do we photograph this thing for the poster that it reads for the narrative of and all those things suddenly at this point in my life I've realized they all happen for a reason.
That's very cool. So all the small things, has clay making ever come into the equation?
Yes, molding, masks, all these sorts of things. Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah. And scale model building, also a very dying art, which is very sad to me. That art is dying out in this country, unfortunately. I'll very happily teach you to build a scale model if you're bored one day.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Let's do that.
Let's do that.
No, you don't get to come. It's our play date. Okay. How have you been able to develop longevity in an industry as tumultuous as this one?
Ooh. I think that's twofold. I think as a younger artist, well, I say that, and when I say younger, I just mean literally yesterday, but definitely as an artist in my 20s, which was back in the dark ages. I think I was always, if I wasn't doing the next big show, or if I wasn't doing the next important thing in the limelight, I felt like a failure. And I thought if I wasn't being seen or perceived in a certain way in the industry, that I wasn't making it, which is just a very toxic mindset to have, because it's just not true.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't going to be in that show, if I wasn't designing that thing, or if it wasn't I wasn't making it. And I think what I was forced to do to survive, which everyone has to do to survive, is do multiple different things. Again, where my other skill sets came into play, also sort of veered off into designing for corporate eventing, which is, soul destroying to some extent, because you want to be making theatre. But those things kept the skill alive. It kept me busy. It paid bills, put money in the bank account so I could pay the bills, so that you can afford to do the theatre show that has 2.5 rand in a packet of chips to pay you as a salary. So I think in terms of longevity, I think it was making sure that I had multiple arrows in my bow. Is that the saying? That's not Anglash. We're back to Anglash.
Yeah, Islam.
Yes. So it was that. And then I think the other thing in terms of longevity with producers, listen, I think all of us as creatives have an interesting relationship with producers. And I think that's a thing that happens worldwide. But I think an important thing for me that I'm starting to understand very intimately, and I think it's a point you get to in your career, is delivery. Because I think we all sort of beat ourselves up by doing a show and you weren't your best on that project. I mean, you go, oh God, that's what everyone thinks about me now. And that's okay, because everyone's always going to have opinion and everyone's always going to have something to say, because that's just the world we live in. But delivery is the thing. If they know that you're going to deliver a product to them, they know there's that surety. So I think it's twofold. I think it's having multiple things that you can do to keep the money coming in, and ensuring you're getting to that point where you can deliver a product and that people know that about you.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's really cool to know that you did lots of little jobs, but they all kind of like fell under the bracket of design. Like they kept the skill alive, because my thing is like, I don't want to go and do work where I'm going to leave all my skills behind for such a long time, because I'm like, I want to keep crafting them and keep it going, keep the fire alive, keep like my choreographic brain working. So it's about finding jobs that pay the bills, but you're also fine-tuning for the moment when it does come.
I mean, please don't get me wrong. I mean, I can tell you of moments of me dressed as a giant ladybug on the back of a fire truck on the lighting of the Adley Street Parade and getting blown off the truck in the wind. So please don't get me wrong. It wasn't all let's develop our skill as an artist. Some of it was I need a 400 rand to pay for food for the rest of the week. And that's perfectly fine. Yeah. That is the life of an artist. And that happens worldwide. Yeah. I know so many South African artists that have moved to the UK and they feel so much, again, that word, they feel so much shame in between gigs having to work at a perfume counter or having to work at a Starbucks but it's so normal over there. It's just the gig that puts the money in the account between the other things. Which allows you to do what you want to do. And it's just a shift of a mindset for us as artists to go, that is perfectly fine. That is what we do as artists. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. Yeah. It's not whether or not you're in the next big musical that's been announced. Yeah. It really isn't as an artist. Yeah, I see it as like, I used to see it as like, oh, I failed. But now I see it as I'm doing this so that I don't have to fail. I don't have to stop doing it. So just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. So, as we've been saying, this is a challenging industry. How do you look after your mental health and welfare? I don't. You look after. Well, my therapist, who I think she goes to therapy because of me. Shout out. How do I look after it? Listen, I will be very honest with you and say, you know, I've had a rough journey with mental health, as so many people out there have, and so many people do on a daily basis. And as I said to you earlier, I think the most important thing for me to realize now in the industry, especially because design for me is it's a lonely business to some extent, is to make sure that I am talking to people, make sure that I am, expressing again within a safe space. This is how I'm feeling right now. This is something. Can you give me some perspective on this, especially with anxiety as a disorder? Just getting that perspective on things is really important. Obviously, I'm very blessed to have my fur child, who's my son, Sebastian. Shout out to you again, boy. And I love to, take him for walks and, try and see my family as much as possible and, do all those good things, all those things, those boxes that you tick to take care of yourself, which is super important. Try and exercise. A little bit lazy on that front, but that's okay. Me loves a couch pizza and Netflix, but that's, but yes, and I think it's just me finding a space for myself to make sure that I'm talking to people, make sure that I get some perspective on myself and I don't get lost in my head about things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you find that having a community of people outside of the industry helps you stay grounded?
When you say outside of the industry,
like family, or your family's in the industry.
What popped up for me now is so many people in the industry go, I'm never going to date somebody in the industry. And then so many people say, I'm never going to date somebody out of the industry, because people that are out of the industry don't understand our industry. But yes, I do think perspective is really important. Just because I think we get so emotionally involved and so intellectually involved in what we do, I think we can get lost in it very easily. And I think finding that perspective of, this is just a braai and we're going to talk about nonsense now, and we're going to, swim and, make your food and talk nonsense about what this person decided to wear to the braai that day.
Yeah.
That stuff is important.
Yeah.
To get us out of our heads.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that just leads into our next question, which is, how do you go about separating your product service from your personal life? Because obviously it is all the same thing.
Listen, I think I would hope for future generations. I would hope that we talk about this enough to find a way to find the healthy boundaries. That's a big word. That's a very important word.
Yeah.
It's an important word for me. And it's an important word for artists in terms of what boundaries are. But what did you actually ask me before I veer off on boundary conversation?
How do you go about separating your product service from your personal life? Yeah.
So I think, as I said previously, we as artists are so emotionally involved in what it is. We are our art to some extent. And I personally, and I'm sure there are many people that would have other views on this, I personally, at this point in my life, can't see how, as artists, we separate ourselves from what we do and who we are.
Yeah.
I think the trick thereof is not to separate it, but to find the yin and yang, find the balance between the two of how do I decompress out of this? How do I not go down that rabbit warren of anxiety and in my head the whole time? How do I find the balance? And that's where I am in my career as an artist now, is trying to find that balance. I don't think it is a black or a white answer.
I think it's different for everyone as well.
Absolutely.
With how much you need to separate yourself from your work. And also not base your self-worth on your work.
Yeah.
Just because you designed a bad dress on one show doesn't mean that...
So many.
Doesn't mean that your worth as a person needs to go down. So that's something I struggle with as well. Like a bad show doesn't mean I'm worth less as Anna. So yeah.
And a very, very important thing to hold on to.
Yeah.
Really important not to let ourselves, completely destroy ourselves because of one bad... I mean, that's a big life lesson, right?
Yeah.
We are not our mistakes.
Yeah. And you as a person are not your wins or your losses in this industry. You are a person. So I think that's very important. I think it's a very important conversation to be having at any stage in your career, and to constantly be refining that skill of creating those boundaries for you. So yeah.
This is very deep and lovely.
Sorry. Cool. What, in your opinion, as an experienced creative, are the biggest pitfalls in the industry as it exists today?
whoa,
Yeah.
feel the knives coming out all over the industry already. What do I feel? So going into the industry, my challenge in my journey was that the generation above me was so closed with any information and mentorship, and it just didn't exist. It wasn't something that they were willing to do. They were so terrified about holding on to what they had to safeguard their careers. And I think it was a very bad mindset to think that if we just take care of what we have here and not let it anywhere out, we will be safe in our careers, and not realizing that actually growing the next generation underneath you and giving to those people, one, it feeds you. Two, it completely, well, for me, it decompresses to help others, it decompresses my, anxiety and my mental health, really. It helps me decompress that. So I think a big challenge was that they didn't, and it was really hard for me to get my foot in the door. And I think to some extent, some of that, well, not some of that, a lot of that still exists in our industry at the moment, where it's really hard with this old guard that's just holding desperately onto something, and there's no or very little development of the future and the new artists and the new creatives. That having been said, there are some people working very hard to change that. And the new generation is amazing to watch what people like yourself are doing out there. Because I think it's really, really, really exciting. And I hope that we can find more avenues to pass these skills on. I mean, just as a practical thing, me trying to design shows at the moment, trying to find service providers, people that know how to, they don't exist anymore. They've been, completely decimated out of the industry. And it's really sad to see, and it makes making commercial theatre incredibly difficult. And that's something that has to change. We have to, it's all part of the bigger organism. We have to create the commercial work to be able to afford to pay the seamstresses and the costume makers and the scenic painters, and we have to keep those arts alive. Because also a lot of focus and a passion of mine and a drive of mine has been to, bring those people that work very much in the background to the foreground, so people see what they do, because they are part of our family.
Oh, yeah.
Without them, that show would not exist to some extent. And I think a lot of focus, for good reason, ends up on our headline creators or our headline cast members. And, the person that spent 42 hours of their life painting cement onto something goes unnoticed.
Yeah.
But without them, the show wouldn't have been what it was. So, in terms of where do I think the biggest pitfalls are at the moment, I think we are sitting, I would love to be sunshine and roses about this, but here's the truth. We are sitting in a state where our industry is relatively decimated of skill in those departments for design, also with technicians and all sorts of things, because people have left the country to go and, pursue money and job opportunities somewhere else. That having been said, the skill still exists in this country to be developed. And it is not too late. I think we are very much on that precipice. And I think if we take control of that situation and really just, again, not give up on this industry and find a way to feed that new generation, we will change that. And it's up to my generation of creatives to make sure that we are bringing people in to, I hate the word mentor because it sounds like I'm going to give everyone, brilliant information on things, whereas they're just going to see me flapping with scissors and fabric and
teach them how to flap with scissors.
Here's the hope. Don't run with scissors. Here's the hope that they will learn something. But that's all we can do. Like so many people, have sort of, asked me to sort of, can I come and shadow you on a job? And I always, I'm terrified of that because I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to impart something to somebody. But that's all we can do in my generation is go, come learn, come shadow, come do this with us, and hopefully somewhere we will start to open up and rebuild.
Yeah, I think it is very exciting to see like the bridge between your generation and mine, and seeing how much like we've learned from being around your generation already, and going like there's so much to learn just by watching you guys and how you operate, and like the brilliant work that you do create. So I think the more we can bridge the gap between the generations, the more hope theatre in this country has. So
And I think that's a big thing at the moment. I think there's a real worry. Some people are talking about it. Some people are too scared to engage with it. There's a real worry around hope for this industry in South Africa.
Yeah.
Because the practicalities on paper are terrifying. Let's not sugarcoat. They're terrifying on paper. But the most important thing to hold on to is they're not insurmountable.
Yeah.
They're not insurmountable.
Yeah. I feel a little hopeful. I feel a little inspired hearing you say that, because I've had days this year going like, oh no, what have I done going into this industry? I have had days like that, being honest, like seeing it going, ooh, this is a little scary, and trying to like keep that hope. So I feel a little better after speaking to you. So connecting to that, what can we do as creatives to help our industry thrive? Like, what do you think as an individual, as a creative, we can all do to get our industry growing and thriving?
One word: community. So what is really, really important, and I have watched this my whole career, is people segmenting or pulling themselves off into various little boxes and labels of, I am a ballet dancer and this is our ballet world. I am an opera singer, this is our opera world. We are musical theatre people. We are the straight drama students from UCT that only act. And, I'm getting shot for that one. Sorry, Mark Flashman. Everyone sort of segments into these things, and something is better than others, and something is more shiny than others, and something is more I'm succeeding than others. And I think it's really important as an industry that we understand that the tiniest little show in some fringe venue is just as important as the large commercial show in the Artscape Opera House. Neither is less or more important than the other. And they are all part of the bigger wheel, the bigger picture. And we have to hold on to that and go, all of these things are important. So in terms of how can we support, well, it's exactly that. It's support. We've got to get out there. We've got to see everyone's shows. We've got to try and do what we can. And there are no easy answers. There are no, here's the route forward. There is no, if the book exists, I don't know. It's a library I have no access to. But we've all got to be there for each other. We've got to understand that, everything that everyone is doing as an arts community is important. It is all valuable. It is all part of the bigger picture. Yes, so support and community.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I also think like a lot of like the competitiveness or boxy thing that happens in our industry is because it can feel quite small, and it can feel like there are not enough jobs for everyone. But the more that you support everyone, the bigger our industry gets and the more space there is for everyone. That's how I see it. So I see like if everyone does come together and there is more for everyone, and supporting each other and leaning on your community as well, is very important. But yeah, so that's beautiful that you said that. And I mean, that's what this whole movement is about for all of us here, is the community and working together. Yeah, man. I need to stop doing this.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Listen, I think another important thing to sort of throw into the mix, which has been an interesting experience for me with some creatives, is that this pull between the fringe, the new, and the experimental theatre and commercial theatre. And I think if I could impart something to the younger generation, I can't believe it, the younger generation out there, if I could impart this, I'd go, guys, commercial theatre it's politics, and it's complicated. It's really complicated. There's big money on the line, because I know so many people go, why does this producer use the same team the whole time? Because there's huge money on the line. And again, delivery. They need to know, and it's complicated. It doesn't make it right, but it is a complicated system. And commercial theatre is what keeps some of our artists alive. It pays more than likely the better salaries. Does it? No, but It pays the better salaries. It keeps huge amounts of crew members and technicians and, artisans in the background. It keeps them alive and keeps the industry. And so commercial theatre is so important on that level. And it's really commercial theatre. Fringe theatre in Cape Town right now is living its best life. It is unbelievable. It makes me so happy to see how much fringe theatre is happening and all these sudden birth of these interesting new spaces. And I mean, the work that the Outlaw is doing and, the work that Corpe Theatre is doing and, all these incredible spaces are so wonderful to see. And the commercial theatre world is really taking a serious knock. And it's not something we can afford to let go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that for me, I've been working a lot in the fringe space, and it's a very exciting space. And I think that the more support and the more we can bring our normal friends to fringe theatre and get them into that cycle of seeing new and creative stuff, the more likely they are to go watch the big commercial shows and starting to get a new generation of people excited about theatre. So that's something I would like to say is like supporting fringe theatre is super, super important, because without that and without building a generational and societal excitement around theatre, then the commercial stuff will fall flat. So I think building that hype is very important, and take your friends to go watch all the fringe, weird, quirky stuff. It's very important. Oh, hi, bad. So then I said here, advice for your 21-year-old self. Yeah. Would you like to tell little Niall?
No. I think we have to justify what you mean by null. Thanks for that knock on my self-esteem.
Is this your Starbucks name?
It is my Starbucks name.
No.
No. Advice my 21-year-old self. Oh, that's very deep. Okay, you're going to get a deep answer. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Advice. Nobody's going to, via osmosis, understand you. You can't get saddened and brought down by the fact that people just don't get you and that you can't find that community of people. You have to teach people how to deal with you. You have to teach people how to love you, and that in itself is going to grow you as an artist. And never give up.
I felt like I could see yourself giving your 21-year-old self a hug there. That was beautiful.
He was really chunky.
Why do you do that? You're taking me on such an emotional journey. You're like so deep, my heart is melting. He was really chunky.
That's what I do. I told you earlier, am I funny or am I just inappropriately dealing with trauma?
The latter. That's all I really wanted to ask you, Neil. I was about to call you Niall. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, but it's all I really wanted to ask you. But I just want to say thank you so much for being so open and honest, and for being so deep and going there and actually saying things that aren't the easiest things to say, but I think that hearing it and starting the conversation is super important. So thank you for being brave today, and thank you for sharing with us, because that's the first step also of bridging the gap between the generations, is learning from you guys. So thank you.
And that we all go through the same stuff.
Yeah.
That it is okay.
Yeah. But anyways, thank you so much. And thank you so much for watching. We will see you soon. Bye.